His child is missing. You know, there's a lot of urgency there. We've had people from all over the state, you know, as far away as Raleigh, that's offered our resources to us to respond and help. And, you know, we have, if we exhaust what we have out here now, or obviously at some point they'll need a break, we have plenty of more resources we can bring in to continue the search.
September 7th, 2025 began like any other Sunday. The kind of day where the only sounds were the distant hum of traffic and the gentle rustle of leaves. A day that promised nothing but the slow, graceful descent into night. But at 6:57 p.m., that stillness was shattered. It wasn't a crash or a scream. It was the sudden, jarring intrusion of an Amber Alert, a digital siren that echoed in every phone, in every home. The alert carried the image of a 7-year-old boy, Liam King, with his wide, vulnerable brown eyes. It warned that he was in danger. Liam was non-verbal, a detail that added a new, heartbreaking layer of helplessness to the panic. He couldn't cry out for help. He couldn't answer if someone called his name. He was a child who was not only missing, but also completely unable to tell his story. The community feared a stranger had taken him. That the real danger, the one they never saw coming, was closer than they could have possibly imagined. This is more than just a case. It's a story we are all called to bear witness to. If you believe every child deserves to have their story heard, please take a moment to hit that like button. It's a small act, but it helps amplify Liam's voice. By liking this video, you're not just supporting this channel, you're joining a community dedicated to seeking justice for the voiceless. Don't let his memory fade into the background. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. Your presence here, right now, is a sign that you care, and that matters. In the initial hours, the narrative was tragically simple, and the community's response was nothing short of heroic. According to his parents, Liam had simply wandered off from his home on the afternoon of September 7th. A non-verbal 7-year-old with cognitive impairments, he was a child who could easily become disoriented. The official report declared him endangered. The public reacted with a torrent of shared posts, a collective wellspring of concern and fear. Neighbors and strangers alike joined law enforcement, the fire department, and search and rescue teams. They fanned out across the fields and through the dense woods, their flashlights piercing the deepening twilight. The air was filled with a single desperate hope: to find Liam alive and unharmed. This was the story everyone believed. A tragic accident, a child lost to the vastness of the woods, or perhaps the worst-case scenario, a random, opportunistic predator. The town held its breath, united in a shared mission to bring a vulnerable child home. At this point, no one imagined that the most dangerous place for Liam King might have been a place he had never left at all. The first crack in the story wasn't a piece of evidence, but a question. Why did it take so long? Liam was reported missing at 5:14 p.m., the Amber Alert. A tool designed for immediate action wasn't issued until 6:57 p.m., a gap of 1 hour and 43 minutes. When asked about this critical delay, the sheriff's office explained they were verifying information. But what information could be more urgent than a non-verbal child, potentially lost and alone in the woods as night fell and temperatures dropped? This delay was a jarring signal that something about the official narrative was incomplete. As the days turned into a relentless search, other details began to surface, subtle yet deeply unsettling. The public saw a family on television who seemed stoic, almost composed in their pleas for help, while others were frantic, scouring every bush and ditch. The parents appeared in televised interviews, their behavior a stark contrast to the agony the town was experiencing. Small inconsistencies began to emerge in their statements to police. The exact location Liam was last seen, the time they realized he was gone. These discrepancies, minor on their own, started to form a tapestry of small deceptions that didn't align with the chaos of a truly frantic search. The initial fear of a stranger gave way to a far more chilling suspicion that the answers to what happened to Liam weren't lost in the woods, but locked behind the doors of his own home. The investigation was no longer about a lost child. It was a forensic dissection of a family's story. As the initial panic subsided, police moved from a search and rescue operation to a meticulous criminal inquiry. They started with the timeline, and the discrepancies were stark. The parents claimed Liam had been playing quietly in the backyard. At 5:14 p.m., they stated he was gone. Yet the 911 call was not made until nearly an hour later. The Amber Alert, as we've already mentioned, came even later. Police also began to analyze the digital footprint left by the family. Public social media posts showed heartbreaking pleas and carefully worded updates designed to garner sympathy. But a deeper look at their private communications and phone records painted a different picture. Calls were not made to neighbors or close friends in a state of panic, as would be expected. Instead, they were brief and controlled. Neighbors' surveillance cameras, which were checked as a matter of routine, provided a crucial piece of the puzzle. While the parents claimed Liam was playing in the backyard, footage from a camera across the street showed no sign of the boy at all during the critical time window. A neighbor's video doorbell, which had a view of the family's front door, captured the mother's car leaving the driveway at 5:35 p.m. Just 20 minutes after she claimed Liam had disappeared. She returned 10 minutes later. Where did she go? Why was this trip not mentioned to law enforcement? The investigation unearthed more inconsistencies in the parents' statements. One parent stated Liam was wearing a blue Nike sweatshirt. The other insisted it was a gray t-shirt. Small details perhaps, but to an investigator, these were not the mistakes of a frantic mind. They were the shifting details of a fabricated story. Liam's beloved blanket, a comfort object he never went without, was found folded neatly on his bed, a place he hadn't slept in since his alleged disappearance. The visual changes to a faceless silhouette of a parent, with a graphic representation of thought patterns appearing on the screen. This is where the psychological analysis becomes critical. Experts in the field of child forensics and criminal behavior recognize a distinct pattern. When a parent is lying about a missing child, their behavior often reflects a performance. They are not genuinely grieving. They are acting the part of a grieving parent. There's a certain sterile precision to their actions, a lack of the raw, messy emotion that comes with true loss. They are more focused on maintaining their story than they are on finding their child. This is a cold, calculated form of manipulation, a public play for sympathy and a private cover-up. The behaviors and statements of Liam's parents began to fit this unsettling profile with chilling precision, leading investigators to a single, terrifying conclusion. As the public grew restless and the initial search efforts came up empty, three dominant theories took hold. The first, and most widely accepted initially, was that of a tragic accident. Liam, being non-verbal and cognitively impaired, could have easily wandered off the property and become lost. The unforgiving terrain of rural Ashboro and the cool nights made this a plausible, if heartbreaking, scenario. Yet, days of exhaustive searching by trained professionals with dogs and thermal imaging, both on foot and by air, yielded no trace of him. No discarded clothing, no tracks, no sign of his passage. The sheer lack of evidence in the expansive wilderness began to debunk this theory. The second theory, a far more chilling one, was that of an outside perpetrator. A stranger, a predator, had seen an opportunity and taken a vulnerable child. This is the narrative that sends shivers down the spine of every parent. That this theory, too, had no legs to stand on. There was no sign of forced entry into the home, no ransom notes, no phone calls, and no witnesses who saw anyone suspicious in the area. The house was not chaotic, as would be expected from a struggle, but neat and orderly. This wasn't the work of a random, violent act. It was the result of a meticulously planned and executed crime. This left investigators with a third, and most difficult theory: family involvement. This theory, uncomfortable as it may be, was the only one that aligned with the accumulating evidence. It explained the delayed Amber Alert, the parents' inconsistencies, their unsettling composure in public, the digital evidence that contradicted their story, and the baffling absence of any trail in the woods. The lack of a body, a heartbreaking reality, pointed not to a child lost to the elements, but to one hidden by someone who knew exactly how to evade detection. The evidence, every piece of it, pointed not outward, into the woods or toward a stranger, but inward, toward the very people who were supposed to be Liam's protectors. This is where we must move beyond the facts of the case and into the deeper, more uncomfortable questions about human nature and systemic failure. When a child like Liam disappears, we instinctively want to believe in a narrative we can understand, a random act of evil, a tragic accident. But the truth, when it's revealed, is often far more complex and rooted in a psychological breakdown that many are unwilling to confront. In cases involving a child with special needs, the psychological toll on parents can be immense. While the vast majority of parents rise to this challenge with grace and unconditional love, a dark reality exists. For some, the overwhelming demands, the financial stress, and the isolation can transform a child from a beloved family member into a perceived burden. This can foster a sense of resentment and, in the most extreme cases, lead to a complete breakdown of empathy. When this is coupled with traits of narcissism, where a parent views their child not as an individual, but as an extension of themselves, a child who doesn't live up to an idealized image can become a source of shame and an obstacle to a perfect life. Liam's non-verbal status is critical here. It meant he couldn't speak out. He couldn't articulate his needs or his fears. He was, in a sense, voiceless, a terrifying vulnerability that can be exploited by those with malicious intent. We must also confront the systemic failures. Child welfare services and local authorities often operate on a principle of non-interference, particularly within the sanctity of the family home. There's a blind trust in the nuclear family unit that can create a perfect cover for abuse. Warning signs, if they were there maybe, a neighbor's fleeting concern or a teacher's unease, may have been dismissed as a parent simply being overwhelmed. The very systems designed to protect children can, in their hesitancy to intervene, become complicit in a tragedy. The story of Liam King forces used to look beyond a single crime and consider the societal failures that allow such horrors to unfold in plain sight. In the modern age, a missing person case becomes a digital phenomenon almost instantly. Social media can be a powerful force for good, amplifying a search and mobilizing a community in a way that was once unimaginable. Liam King's case was no different. His photo was shared hundreds of thousands of times, crossing state lines and national borders within hours. The collective outrage and concern of the online community brought immense pressure to bear, ensuring the case stayed in the spotlight. This is the positive side of online engagement, a shared humanity in action. However, social media is a double-edged sword. The same platforms that help can also hinder, creating a storm of misinformation that can derail a legitimate investigation. In the vacuum of official information, Self-proclaimed internet sleuths began to fill the void with theories, rumors and speculation. Well-intentioned people, driven by a desire to help, began to analyze every post, every interview, and every photo, often misinterpreting details and jumping to wild conclusions. This leads to digital vigilantism and baseless accusations, causing real-world harm to innocent people. In Liam's case, this meant rampant speculation about family members, neighbors, and even strangers who happened to be in the area, leading to harassment and threats. The media's role in its race for clicks and views often amplified these unverified claims, blurring the line between responsible reporting and sensationalism. It's a chaotic online environment where the search for truth can be lost in a flood of unproven theories. This story challenges us to look beyond the headlines and confront uncomfortable truths about the world around us. It forces us to ask ourselves, would you have noticed the warning signs? Would you have seen the cracks in the facade of a family that seemed perfectly normal from the outside? Could this happen in your own town? To a child you pass every day without a second thought. It's easy to dismiss these stories as something that happens to other people in a faraway place. But by taking a moment to reflect on these difficult questions, you are honoring Liam's life and acknowledging the vulnerabilities of every child in our communities. Your willingness to think deeply about this matters. And so, we are left with the silence. The legal system may have its answers, but without a body, the final, horrifying truth may never be confirmed. This is the heavy, devastating reality of so many of these cases. The official story ends, but the human story lingers, unresolved. The search for a body, for definitive proof, becomes a haunting obsession, a final act of devotion. But the real story of Liam King isn't just about the how. It's about the why. It's about the deep-seated failure of a system to protect its most vulnerable, and the insidious way that abuse can hide in plain sight. It's a tragedy that forces us to question our own assumptions about safety, trust, and the darkness that can exist within the familiar. We are all guilty of moving on too quickly. Don't let Liam King become just another statistic, a name that fades from the headlines. Share this video and keep his name in the public consciousness. His memory depends on us. Liam King's silence should be a scream that echoes in our hearts. His voice may have been taken, but his story must be told and retold. This is our final call to witness, to look at his face and remember that he was a child who deserved a life of love, not a headline in a tragic story. We tell his story not for sensationalism, but for justice. We tell it to ensure that the systems that failed him are changed. We tell it to protect the other children who are in need of a voice. Sharing this story is the least we can do to ensure his life meant something more than a brief headline. Subscribe now, and you're not just supporting this channel, you're joining a mission to ensure that the stories of the forgotten are never truly forgotten.